Alright, today I'm going to be making a hopefully triumphant return to the Pauper ring. I got a new spin on kind of an old favorite. I'm back in the, it's a bit of a brew, but back in the Value Town arena, as it were. I've played a lot with Affinity the last couple months, and the decks I keep running into are Infect, Goblins, White Weenie, various forms of Cloud Post, and the Mono Blue Fish deck that's really popular right now, and a few Affinity Mirrors. And I think those 6 decks have kind of crowded out everything else that used to be in the field. There's not a lot of burn. There's actually not a lot of combo. There's not a lot of mono black, which used to give this particular deck problems. And there's not a lot of Familiar Storm has been Frantic Search has been banned, but there's still a little bit of Familiar Storm around, but I haven't seen it very much. So all that said, I think this is a good time to bring this one back. I've tailored it to try to beat the specific metagame I just outlined. So if we play against something rogue or not one of those decks, we could be in for a world of hurt, but hopefully that doesn't happen. I've got 25 lands with 1 cycling land, this traditional 7 Terramorphic Expanses. So basically 24 and a half lands. This is kind of half a land. Playing a little bit different breakdown of creatures. The Chittering Rats, Liliana Spectre, Phyrexian Rager is pretty standard. Only 3 Chittering Rats, only 3 Ravenous Rats. But I like having a lot of the card advantage animals. That's pretty standard in these builds for me. Ravenous Rats is a card that I really don't like, and I was thinking about why. And the reason is that it's never great, it's just always mediocre. Like, if the discard is good, the 1/1 body is usually or the 1/1 body is rarely relevant except against like a really slow control deck where every point of damage you can get in where you're the beatdown. Every point matters. But then they don't really care about the discard. Like Cloud Post just pitches an excess land or something, but they might take some damage from the 1/1 or have it fuel a Shinobi that gets them. Whereas the aggro decks might be hurt more than by the early discard because they play out most of their hand on the first couple turns, but then the 1/1 they're just going to run over. So you're basically Ravens criming them. That's enough talk about Ravenous Rats. So what the white contributes is more card advantage in the 2-drop slot, specifically in the form of Squadron Hawk and Lone Missionary. Lone Missionary's value is really tied to how many aggressive decks are in the format, and right now there are a lot. There's Goblins, and Fish is another deck that kind of tries to tempo you out, and Lone Missionary undoes a couple turns of their tempo, goes ahead and trades with Ninja of the Deep Hours and things like that. Beats down for 2, which is relevant when the board is clear. It's definitely better than having like a 1/1. If I could get in one of these sets a common 2/1 for 2 mana that has the Ravenous Rats trigger, I would be stoked and probably play this deck all the time. But alas, the removal suite is a little bit weird. I've got 2 Doomblades. Well, let me talk about the top of the curve first. At the top of the curve, we have essentially 6 4-drops because the Shinobis are 4-drops. They're all pretty mediocre to bad against aggro, especially the Shinobis. But the Guardians are pretty much like game sealers against most of the decks in this format. They hold the ground and they attack unblockably. Against most decks. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, the Shinobis are in there to give you some game against Cloud Post because I think there's not quite enough punch. Like, there's plenty of card advantage in here, but a deck with Cloud Posts and compulsive research and stuff can just draw through that and eventually get up to where they can get you. So these give you like the you are not coming back from this kind of factor, where once you build an early advantage, you can keep the pressure on and finish strong. The Guardians with the Squadron Hawks let me use 2 Bone Splitters, and the Bone Splitters have the advantage of making all your flyers, like Liliana Spectre and Squadron Hawk, and Guardian of the Guild Pact also has evasion. They just end the game so much more quickly, and so you can use the card advantage you built to kind of try to leverage that into a quick win. Also makes Lone Missionary an insane 4-1 if you can keep the board clear. So there's that. The removal is 6 cards in particular: Doomblade, 2 Doomblades, 2 Unmakes, and I've also got 2 Fume Spitters. Fume Spitter does a lot in this deck. It gives you some game 1 against Infect. It's also excellent against Fish because when it's in play, it can kill Cloud of Fairies, it can kill Spellstutter Sprite with the trigger on the stack, it can kill an unflipped Delver, it can kill Phantasmal Bear. Like, it's basically the nuts against a lot of their creatures. It also, early on against control decks, it can like pick up a Bone Splitter and just go at somebody. It's good against White Weenie. You can pick off Benevolent Bodyguards and Javelineers and things like that would threaten your board otherwise. I just think all around it's a really good card. There's only 2 because you don't want too many against like goblins or control where like they don't have to respect a 1/1 and they don't have creatures that get picked off. 2 are fine against goblins because they can get rid of goblin sledders and things like that because it's a -1/-1 counter, but they're mostly for Infect and Fish. And just to move on to the sideboard, I have 2 more Fume Spitters in the sideboard, 3 Snuff Outs. I think this is the biggest contribution that the deck got. Masks has been released, and Snuff Out is no longer 4 tickets, it is now like 20 cents. And Snuff Out is amazing against Infect. It's also decent against Fish, and it's fine against a lot of other creature decks. Just an all-around good card. Core Sanctifiers actually does a lot of things. Comes in against White Weenie and kills Journey to Nowhere, Razor Golem, and Bone Splitters. It obviously comes in against Affinity and is just a house. And a 2/3 is actually pretty relevant in this format, so I bring it in against Fish if they had Spire Golems, etc. Prismatic Strands for combo. It's also good against Infect. You get them to go all in and then you fog. Unearth helps you grind it out a little bit against the control decks. You can play this and a creature in one turn. That's a pretty common use of Unearth. I moved it out of the main deck because the creature come into play effects, which are usually the main boon of having Unearth, are not very powerful in this deck. There's no Get-To Slingers or anything crazy like that. And as for like the discard triggers, those just aren't as strong right now with so much aggro in the format that to where Unearth is amazing. But 2 in the board for control matchups is fine. I already mentioned the Fume Spitters. Duress gives us some game against any kind of combo and is also good against control. So I'm gonna give this a try. Like I said, it's a bit of a brew. It's very uncommon, and it doesn't really, like, it has just a lot of cards and not really any great synergies. But I think that we should be able to grind some matches out and do exactly what I like to do, which is trade 2-for-1s all day, and we'll see how it goes.